One of the jobs I've been wanting to do for ages is to sort out the leak that's in the radiator here. I know roughly what the issue is. There's a leak just about here, or maybe here, right at the top of the rad. The water's drained because it was just full of water. There wasn't any antifreeze in it, so as soon as it got into properly winter, I drained it all down. So at least I don't have to do that. Well, I think that may have been a two-man lift, really. Anyway, alright, let's get in the workshop. Let's strip it down a bit and see what's what. So that's where it's leaking. It's just a very awkward place to have a leak. So I can't put any solder in there because if I heat that up, any solder, any neighbouring solder will just melt away and the whole thing will disassemble before my eyes. Such a strange place to have gone. I've given it a lot of consideration and watched some videos on people repairing radiators. Including videos of people actually know what they're doing repairing radiators, and I'm very reluctant to try and solder this. Reason being that this whole section is normally done at once. Had there been a hole in the radiator that's isolated from any of the solder joints, then yes, I would have gone ahead and tried to solder it. But here, however precise I try and get the repair, I'm concerned that it's just going to make the solder drop out of all the adjacent joints, and then it's just going to make the problem much worse. So instead of soldering it, then I'm going to go with an epoxy fix. Now this stuff normally goes off pretty quick, but because it's very cold today, I'm going to leave it overnight, and then if the joint looks okay, I'll pump some air into the radiator and squirt some detergent on it and see if we can make any bubbles or whether the repair's held. I'll just show you an earlier repair that I did using the same method. This is of course my Land Rover. So this repair here is because when I first got this radiator, this neck was slightly loose. So I thought, well, I can solder that, and of course I couldn't. This was 20 years ago, mine. Yeah, anyway, I failed miserably to solder it and the whole thing came loose, as I recall. Anyway, I stuck some JB Weld on there and it's been fine ever since. So you might be able to make out there's that epoxy cement going round it. It's actually a very thin layer. I just smoothed it there to, you know, tidy it up. But point is, it's still holding pressure now after all those years. So epoxy can be a permanent fix. Having said that, if after testing the repair that I've just done on the ZIL radiator, it's still leaking and I have no luck with the epoxy, my next step will be to take it to someone that actually recores classic car radiators, and I'm sure they'd be able to fix it. Looking at the way it's done, there's nothing, you know, it doesn't take fancy equipment. It's just one of those things that takes knowing what you're doing. And yeah, when it comes to recoring radiators, you know, I've done many things, but not that. Anyway, hopefully it won't come to that. Hopefully that repair will hold. Yes. Whilst the radiator's out and being repaired, it gives good access to something else that I've got to sort out. And that's the clutch system that I put in. So we've been having a few issues with the clutch, and by issues I mean that sometimes it takes both feet on the clutch pedal to make it work. It's not really ideal. I had to change the ZIL's mechanically actuated clutch to make it compatible with what the DAF has, which is a hydraulically operated clutch, just like a Land Rover. So on the ZIL you push the pedal, and that pedal actuates a linkage, and that linkage pushes the clutch, all mechanically. Whereas with the DAF, you push down on the pedal pushes a rod into the master cylinder, and that's connected to the slave cylinder by the clutch. So the master cylinder forces hydraulic fluid down a tube into the slave cylinder, pushes out a rod there, and that operates the clutch. The advantage of that system, by the way, is that the clutch system and the pedal don't have to be anywhere adjacent. You know, they can be quite remote from each other. You don't have to worry about getting the mechanical linkage to join the two together. So it's a much more versatile system. The DAF also had air assistance to that, which means that as you start to push down on the clutch pedal, it would open a valve, and the air from the braking system would assist with that movement. So the clutch was very light on the actual DAF, the original truck that we had. So I came up with quite a nifty way of incorporating that hydraulic system into here, apart from one thing. What I, in my haste, forgot or overlooked, and a couple of people to their credit pointed this out, is that the way I've set it up, there's no mechanical advantage involved at all, and I'll show you what I mean by that. This is the little rod that's supposed to stick out the side of the ZIL to show you where the corners are. So if we imagine this rod is the clutch pedal, when you push down on it, the way I've set it up, you push on the pedal and it immediately attempts to operate that master cylinder. What it should be is that this master cylinder, this rod here, should be way down here. So there's a massive lever mechanical advantage going on. So instead of 1-to-1, it should be nearer 8-to-1, something like that. What was happening with the way that I did it is that initially it worked fine, but it turned out that all the force was being produced by the air assist, and it is supposed to be an air assist, and what that meant was when that tank started leaking, the clutch stopped working, and hence you have to put 2 feet on it to make it work at all. All of that is a long-winded way of saying that I need to move the master cylinder in relation to that pedal, and so there's more mechanical advantage to begin with in the system. So it's quite well hidden at the moment. I'll try and zoom in. So there is the join between the linkage, the clutch pedal linkage from the ZIL, and you can just see the rod that goes into the master cylinder. And here we are in the wheel arch, and there's that's the bit of the clutch pedal. So the clutch pedal comes in at the top of that, which is just out of view. Comes down here, and should be able to, yeah, there's the pivot point is there. What I need to do then is get the clutch cylinder from, where is it, up here somewhere, I think it's on that bolt there, and I need to bring it down and attach it lower down. So I might attach it to this or attach it to there, but this is the engine mounts, these bolts, so yeah, it's going to be tricky to make a bracket, although it could go on the outside to those. Anyway, I'll figure something out. There it is. This is the clutch master cylinder. So like I say, when you push down on the pedal, it pushes this rod into this cylinder, which pushes brake fluid or hydraulic fluid through back here and down to the clutch. This bit here goes to reservoir, which sits just above. Okay, I've got a plan. So the nice bracket that I had here to mount on the inner wing, which went something like that, that's got to go. Yeah, it's just no good for what I want. So I'm going to cut this bit off. I'm going to leave this bit on. It actually holds on to the cylinder. That's fine. I'm going to cut it about here and replace this with a new bracket that will pick up on two of the engine mounting bolts that are in there, holding on one of the rear mounts, and that'd be a nice solid place to mount it. Right, that repair failed. Yeah, it turns out the hole isn't quite where I thought it was, so I'm going to try and show you where it is. What I've done now is actually pushed back some of these fins here and open up the area around the column that I know has got the problem, and I've actually found an actual hole, so that's good. I've got a definite issue now that I can sort out. So there's a hole just there. So just a teeny weeny hole. It's really odd because it's not actually on a join. I was assuming the problem was with the join between this column and the top bit here, but it's not, it's just below that. I've tested that's the issue by, like I say, pushing these fins down and then getting some washing up liquid and water, pumping air in through here and then squirting it about to see if the bubbles come out, and then putting my finger over that hole and seeing if there are any more bubbles, and they don't seem to be. So that seems to be the only issue, is that tiny little hole. So now I've got some good access around that area. I'm going to try again and mix up some more epoxy and stick that in there, leave it overnight, and we'll come back tomorrow and see if this time it's been successful. The hole is still too close to all the joints here for me to actually be confident about soldering it. I think even if I was really good at soldering, which I'm not, that, yeah, particularly being all brass here, the heat would just transfer up there and all the joints would start opening up. So yeah, I'm not going to try soldering it. I'm going to try JB Weld again, but this time knowing where it is. Let's hope we have better luck. I'd removed all the old epoxy. Well, old, it's only on there 2 days. And abraded all the surfaces again. So I'm hoping this should stick quite well. Let's leave that overnight and test it in the morning. It's a few days later, so that 5-minute epoxy has had plenty of time to go off, and I've brought the radiator outside for testing. So first thing to do then, I'm going to fill it up with water and see what happens. Hopefully nothing. If that's successful, then I'll put this plug back in here, and I'll put this Schrader valve in here, and I'll pump a bit of air in here to pressurise that water and then see what happens. With this rig, I'm not expecting it to be perfectly sealed anyway, so it's not going to be a perfect test. So I've looked it up, and the Cummins 6BT that we've got in the Zill there normally has a pressure release valve on its expansion tank, which starts releasing pressure at anything over 10.1 psi, I think it was, somewhere in that region. So that means the normal pressure is going to always be below that. So that means that if I can get a hydrostatic test on this radiator to anything above that, we're good to go. Okay, that's full now. Because I only need a tiny bit of pressure, rather than use my big air receiver there, and I only need a tiny bit of air as well. I'm going to try using this. This is my jump starter power pack, and it comes with this nifty little tire inflator. It's up to 10 psi so far, and that repairs fine, but it's terribly wrong under here. Ah yes, that's what's happening. So what's happening is, I'm pumping air in here. This radiator cap has a spring, and I'm getting to a pressure which is over what this spring is set for. So the spring's moving slightly, and it's letting the water run out through here like it's supposed to. Yes. That's alright then. So what that says there is, in Russian, 1 kg stroke cm squared. More or less 1 bar. So the Soviets used a slightly different system. Instead of bar, it's kilograms per centimetre squared. So yeah, all that's going on there basically is I'm getting over that. That's moving that way just a tad, and letting the water out. Now I can't block the end of that pipe because it's inside this housing. I can't block the top end of it because I don't want to. I don't want anything to get trapped down there. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is fill it up again and pump it up to a bit less than that, and see if it holds at that. That'll give me some idea of if there's any other major leaks. Right, so the cap's on nice and tight. Put that in there. So the good news is then that the repair is holding. There's no other apparent leaks. The bad news is the radiator cap that should hold to just under 10 psi is letting pressure out at anything over 5. But if you think about it, that radiator cap has been on there for 40 years, so that spring has been in compression for 40 years. It might be that under normal running conditions it's fine, that the Cummins engine isn't producing more than that, but we'll see. Main thing is though, the radiator seems fine, so I can put that back in. Got to make a bracket then that's going to fill up this space between this bracket and this bracket, so something like that, and pick up on this nut and this nut. First of all I've got to get those out. That's the engine mounting behind there. Right, there we go, that's that. So I'll try and get in there then with a bit of paper and trace best I can what shape I'm going to need. Now then I can take my really rough template, I suppose you call it, and lay it on top of this. This is a piece of 100mm by 6mm flat bar, or 4" by 1/4" in old money. So that top corner of the bar is going to be the top corner of the plate. So I want to bring this hole in from the edge, so I'm not going to use that straight line. I'm going to bring that in a bit. So the furthest I can bring it in is where that edge connects there. Yeah, that's loads better. And we're looking something like that. Cut that there, hole there, and a hole there. That's more or less that then. So it now fits in between those two brackets that are already on the ZIL. The what was it? The shock absorber bracket there and the cab mounting bracket there. That was it. So this now then is going to replace this bit. Take that off. Let's get the actual cylinder out. After some careful measuring then, I think what I want to do is to make this cylinder sit 32mm away from the front of this plate as it mounts to the ZIL chassis, which means cutting this bracket where I've marked this line here. A few minutes in the bandsaw then, and there it is. Chuck that bit away. I'm going to go back to the truck, offer all this up, and see if I can work out the orientation, because that's going to have to be a bit like that and over there a bit. Bolted it into what's left of the original bracket and offered it up to the chassis, and it needs to go at that angle, and that gives me just enough clearance to get in there and do up this bolt here. And it gives a decent amount of travel there. I'm going to clean this up and then tack weld it on and check it again, and then if that works I'll fully weld it all up. But yeah, give it a right good clean first because it's covered in paint and stuff. There, something like that. Yeah, so that will arc a bit as it goes, and it will tend to push it that way. So I might actually put this a bit more upright to compensate for that. Yeah, let's do that. Where that was fitted in the truck looked quite good, apart from the fact that when the linkage comes down, it's coming down in an arc because it's pivoting around about this point. So it's not coming down straight like that, it's actually curving on its descent. I think I'm going to allow for that by cutting this tack that I did down here and just moving this corner up a little bit. And then, yeah, that'll be just in the right place, I think, to push down. What I wanted to do is to push down on that pin, when that pin's in, to push nice and straight down instead of pushing it off at an angle that way, and it'll all start to bind up if that happens. Off it up again. Okay, that's good. I'm happy with that. So the tacks are in the right place now, and it's at just the right angle. As the linkage comes down in an arc, it's going to press nice and square, or as square as I can get it, onto the pin going in there. Right, so for the tack welding, I was running off the battery power, but now to weld this up properly, I'm going to fire up the generator and yeah, get some proper power in here. Next then I need to make a slightly bigger version of this to go in the end of the cylinder, in there. 0.5 hole through there, and this one I'm going to drill and tap for an M8, and then I can use this bar in the new bit, like so. Those two at 8.5 then, so for a pin to go through there, and this one's 7, ready to be tapped out for an M8 thread. These bits are tidied up then, and I've beveled the edges so that I can get right in there, because it's quite chunky metal, this. Even so, I think the metal is too thick for the MIG welder to cope with, so I'm going to wheel out the monster here. Quick bash with a grinder and the belt sander, and we're there, I think. Bit agricultural looking, but that's in keeping. So that will go on there. When I'm done, I will paint everything. I'll paint the bracket, I'll paint this, and I'll Loctite this rod into here. So that goes in there, that will go on there. That'll go on the bracket. Right, let's see if it all fits. There's the bracket snugly installed then, nestled between the bracket here for the shock absorber and the bracket there for the cam. And just above it is the linkage that we're trying to connect to. Let's get this in, and then you can see how it's coming together. That'll go just a tad up there. Good. Now I just need someone to sit in the cab and put their foot on the pedal for me.
I can fix disco lights, you know. Fixed disco lights before. Was that filming?
What I wanted to do is to film in here.
Yes.
Do you want to pop in the cab then?
Yes, I do.
Right, don't put your phone in yet.
I'm not. It's fine.
Right, well, I gently apply pressure to the clutch pedal. Okay, back up.
That was about 3/4 of the way to the floor.
That's good, isn't it?
I don't know.
Right, don't do anything. Okay, do it now. You can feel resistance now, yeah?
Feel resistance now.
Yeah, okay, that's his full travel.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we want it.
That's still quite a way off the floor.
That's good.
So, yeah.
Right.
Up.
Yeah, up again. And just trying it in slightly different places.
Yeah.
Okay, down.
About the same as last time.
Yeah. And up. Yeah, I'm going to adjust it so that it's a little bit more force at the beginning, because I think that's the hardest bit, is to get it going. Yeah, okay, I think we're there. Right, do one more. And up.
Pretty good. I mean, if that works, if that's the full amount of clutch in that space, even I could drive it. It's not going to require 2 Ironthumper legs to do it, is it?
And drill through that, pin it, and then we can plumb it up and test it for real.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, that would be a good good thing to have working nice. I suppose there's nothing really for it, you know, to be vulnerable on it, is there? The wheel can't hit it at full lock, can it? I'm only thinking of, well, no, because the shock's in the way. And
yeah, it's more protected than it looks.
Yeah.
I did consider boxing it in.
Yeah.
But what occurred to me is that ultimately you're boxing in as much mud as you're protecting it from.
Yeah.
So I thought, considering the mileage we're going to be doing, it's probably better to leave it as it is, because the thing is protected, and then we can just wash it down, you know, when it needs it. I will take it off and paint it, but I intend to needle gun all of this area and hammerite it anyway. So when I do that, I'll actually take the bracket off and paint it up.
Yeah.
But what I was saying with lots of these things, some of it needs to be designed and implemented, and some of it is a case of installing it, see what happens, and then changing the design on that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it worked before, but obviously it had a glaring error. This is an evolution of that original idea. But
well, it's only ever going to get better then, isn't it? That's the way. It's exactly what
I think that's quite good.
Yeah, I think it is.